Hey there, wonderful listeners. I am your host, Eric, and today we have an exciting episode lined up for you. We are exploring the spiritual side of leadership with the incredible Dr. Andy Neillie. Andy is a business owner, best selling author, and award winning speaker who knows what it takes to transform managers into high performing leaders. With over 20 years of experience, Andy combines his expertise in management and sales with a passion for building trust and leading well. So get ready for an enlightening conversation with the four leadership necessities. So, Dr. Andy, welcome to this podcast.
Thanks for having me on, Eric. I'm looking forward to a spirited discussion.
Spirited discussion, that's right. So, Dr. Andy, can you share your journey and what inspired you to focus on leadership?
Yeah. It's interesting. You and I talked just a little bit about the spiritual side of leadership as we corresponded with one another. I became a follower of Jesus very early in my life. While my family is not a family that went to church regularly, I had some friends that I aligned with and tried to become a disciple of Jesus as a very young man. As I grew,
One.
and started getting into the work environment as a young person, it wasn't even my career yet. It was like when I was in high school or when I was at university, I just had some bad bosses, Eric, just people that had anger management issues and were selfish. And I'm reading the biographies of this servant leader, Jesus, while I'm experiencing a selfish anger management issue boss with a violent temper. And I thought, you know what? This isn't the way it's supposed to be. So my passion for what makes a good leader really started with, why do I have such a bad boss? And why is he not like this wonderful servant leader that I'm reading about? And that was at this point, as you said during my introduction, more than 20 years ago. And I've been on a quest since then to figure out what type of inner person allows them to become an outward leader that you and I would grow from and learn from and flourish underneath and want to work for.
Yeah. Wow, that's really, you know, following Jesus is always going to be contrary to what you see in the world. I mean, it's been what? It's been like 4 years since I have started following Jesus. And what I see in my secret room and what I see in the scriptures and the principles of the kingdom are so different from what we see in the world. But that's what we are called to do. We are called to enforce this kingdom on this earth, where we see that that there's greed. So it was really amazing to me how it is my personal journey, how I overcame greed with generosity. To a carnal mind, it would not make sense. However, however, in the kingdom mindset, it does not make sense, but like it works. It works. Like whenever someone hurts you, you are not cursing them, you're blessing them. So yeah, it's literally contrary to what
Yeah, I
you.
mean, you've learned some of the very same lessons that I'm trying to learn along the way. And so seeing what does that look like and how do I in the work that I do, in the writing I do, in the speaking I do, how do I take those simple lessons? A lot of the leaders in the marketplace don't have that spiritual early morning rhythm that it sounds like you have in your own room.
Wow.
What makes them good leaders? And so you mentioned a couple of minutes ago, I boiled it down to what I call the four leadership necessities.
Yeah. What are those? What are them? Why are they?
Yeah. I think they're a reflection of the things you and I are talking about. That,
Mhm.
you'll never be a better leader than you are a person. And as I've looked at, so what
Wow.
makes them good leaders? I think there's four things. First of all, these managers that are committed to becoming high performing leaders. They're people of conviction. They see strategically. They have their eyes up. They have a vision. As you and I think about the Lord Jesus Christ, he set his mind toward Jerusalem. He knew he had a path that he was to follow. The second
Mm.
thing is they're people that invest competence into the folks around them. They help them do their jobs better. Juliet Straw and her research team that wrote the book, The Work of Leaders. She talks about how effective leaders enable their teams to execute. So first is conviction, strategy, see the big picture, have a vision for the future. The second one is, are you helping your team become more and more competent? Are you the person allowing them to be successful at their jobs? Are you clearing the debris in front of them so that they can be effective? That are you a competent leader? The third one, and really the area that you and I so naturally probably focus on, is that whole area of character. What I said a couple of minutes ago, you'll never be a better leader than you are a person. Fair-minded, honest, other-oriented, objective, not about yourself. Good leaders recognize they are the bottom of the pyramid rather than the top of the pyramid. That whole character piece. And then the last one, Arick, it took me a long time to define what I was seeing. And then I came across the word a couple years ago. The fourth word is covenant. And covenant is kind of an old-fashioned word in English. Guy Ritchie brought it back into the popular genre a couple years ago because he had a pretty brutal movie, a typical Guy Ritchie movie, but a powerful movie called Covenant. And covenant reflects both a formal and a personal obligation. The best way for me to understand it, here in the state of Texas, in the U.S. where I live, people get married, love and affection, in sickness and in health, forever and ever. The whole romantic side of I want to spend my life with you. There's that personal side. What people who are getting married in Texas also learn is there's a formal doc that is signed by an official and recorded with the county clerk. There's both a personal side and a formal side to this covenant. And that was it. When I recognized good leaders, they have the formal side. They have a P&L that they're responsible for. They have a project management tool that their team is supposed to accomplish. They've got an agile sprint that they need to complete in the next 6 weeks. They have projects that are due. They have that formal side that they're accountable to their shareholders, to their stakeholders, to their customers or clients. And then you also find out that Arick gave that employee 3 more weeks of PTO because their parent was struggling with cancer and he needed to travel back home. And this employee's 3 extra weeks of PTO went beyond the HR manual, but his leader, Arick, made it happen because it was the right thing. There was both that formal side, but that personal side. And once I realized, that's covenant. That's what good leaders do. So these 4 leadership necessities: conviction, competence, character, and covenant. It's an easy model. 4 C's, it's easy to remember, not so easy to execute. It's a lifetime of getting better and better, but the managers that I see that are working in these 4 areas, they're the ones that are becoming high-performing leaders. Sorry, I've looked at you a lot, but no
worries. I'm enjoying this.
Leader.
This took me back to the time when I was offered um a trip to Bhutan for a 4 Cs training. And for 4 Cs training. And I really wanted to go, but I had my exams during those seasons. So it was like a trip that was all sponsored. It was like God was calling me there. However, I could not go because of my exams, but see, I am getting the 4 Cs training right now.
I suspect their C's were different than mine. I've talked with my team any number of times. Are we trying to force it too hard? Because particularly like the first C, the conviction C, for frontline managers, that may not be, hey, see a 3-year vision for the future. It simply may be, don't just look at the machine that you've been responsible for. Get your eyes on the whole plant now so that you see the entire production process, or begin to think a little bit bigger. Get your eyes up. Frontline workers are responsible for this hour, this day, this week, this month, probably at the most. Leaders need to begin to think quarterly, annually, 3-year plans, things like that. So that first word, conviction, maybe it would be better to say broad-minded or or strategic, but I wanted to have a C so that I could have my own 4 C's. But it's that whole idea of seeing the bigger picture and moving toward the bigger picture, not having your head down.
Yeah. The 4C, it's interesting how the 4C reminded me of my music teacher when he mentioned that he literally he literally put his arm around my shoulders and he said, Eric, always remember, no matter how big or how kind of a celebrity, because I lead worship at my church and my church is growing at a very fast rate. So he told me that talent will take you nowhere, but your character will. And that just it just sticks to me. And he said this to me 2 years ago, but it still sticks with me. And I carry this everywhere I go.
Well, and it's interesting because Arick, you and I are very comfortable talking about it in the spiritual world. You lead worship
Yeah.
at your church. I started my story by saying I was reading about Jesus and having a bad boss that didn't look anything. Most people in the marketplace don't think spiritually, but that very same truth about character, I saw it demonstrated a number of years ago in a totally business environment. I was leading a sales conversation with some salespeople and one of their managers, and the manager was kind of in the back of the room, not fully paying attention. Arick, to this day, I don't know exactly what happened, but something about this manager lying or being selfish or hiding something himself. And immediately you can just see the entire team. I mean, in the next 5 to 7 minutes, they lost respect for their boss. It had nothing to do with what you and I might talk about in terms of Christian ethics or a spiritual mindset around leadership, but his character flaw came out. And in some respects, he lost the right to lead that team that afternoon.
Wow. You know what? I It's interesting how people do not take the spiritual, or if I can say it much boldly, um, how these spiritual and biblical concepts seriously, because it is very clear to me how everything that we have been blessed with, we have been given to steward. I believe it has all come from a spiritual realm. This is what I believe, because that's what Ephesians 1:3 says, that you have been blessed with every spiritual blessing in the heavenly places. So I believe all the materialistic blessings and all the things that we see around us, the source of all these blessings and the things that we have been given to steward, they have all come from a spiritual realm, a higher realm. However, people fail to understand, and that's how I think this guy lost it all.
Yeah, well,
So,
and I can't remember that exact quote, but your point is, I think we all need to recognize we are primarily spiritual beings residing in physical bodies right now. And I think most of us think we're physical beings, and spirituality may work for some people, and they don't recognize the deeper truth.
yeah. So, I would ask you, even for myself, what are the mistakes that I should avoid while I lead my team or when I'm leading my team? While both while I am in it, or while I'm into the action of leading the team, or when I am off stage, when no one is watching me. So,
Yeah.
how would you put that?
Well, I think that's one of those $1,000,000 questions because we never know if we're getting leadership right. At the end of the day, are the people around you better for the time they've spent with you? I think that's the legacy of a leader. But sometimes, Arick, them being better means you need to have hard conversations with them. You need to hold them accountable. You can't be the nicest person in the room while you work at being the kind person. Uh,
Mm.
so I think there's a tension there. Obviously, Simon Sinek wrote his book, Leaders Eat Last, based on the story of the military protocol of the frontline military. Well, eat first, and the generals and the higher up eat only if there's enough food left. That whole concept of leaders eat last is one that I think you and I need to be aware of. We need to make sure our employees are paid for, their payroll is covered. We need to make sure our team members are taken care of. Leadership is primarily self-sacrifice, not self-promotion. And so I think, part of the crusade I'm on in the 2020s is do not confuse celebrity influencers with true leaders, because celebrity influencers are all about themselves. And as you and I work at leading, the whole goal is, man, if you are doing a great worship set, leading a great worship experience at your church, the whole point is you're invisible. And their experience of God in that music is what's most important. And as I'm up on the stage, leading a leadership keynote, in some respects, if I get down off the stage and I have somebody say, man, great point. What was your name again? That's okay, because it's not about me. It's not about you. It's about, are they better for the time that they were under your influence? And did you accomplish the mission of the organization in a healthy way?
Wow, wow. But I also feel that it all comes down to humility as well. So if a leader is not humble, then I don't know if that leader even deserves a position of leadership. Because as you said, that to sacrifice oneself is to lead, if I can put it that way. So even the word says that whoever is last will lead. So
Yeah.
so
Well, and I think that's my crusade against celebrity influencers, because their whole goal is to get 1,000 followers or 10,000 followers or 100,000 followers. And the best leader doesn't count followers. They just want to help people be more successful, more effective, more spiritual, healthier, kinder. And so
Mhm.
it's an upside down kingdom, isn't it?
Wow, wow, wow.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for joining us on this episode, Dr. Andy. A huge thank you for sharing your wisdom and insight. So remember, listeners, true leadership is it's about managing, but it's also about inspiring and connecting on a deeper level. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe, leave a review, and share it with anyone who might benefit from this conversation. Until next time, stay mindful and keep journeying towards your best self.